Hey everyone, it's me. Today we're going to answer the question, what did Jesus really look like? We will be comparing the biblically accurate description of Jesus with what most people believe Jesus looked like based on traditional images. We will also use AI or animation to show you what Jesus might have really looked like. So stay tuned. It turns out that people search for this topic all the time, so I think it's safe to say that many people wonder what Jesus really looked like. Since there are no physical remains of Jesus, there is much debate over what he may have looked like. But we do have some clues from the Bible that can help us paint a picture of what Jesus may have looked like. First, let's look at the traditional image of Jesus. The most common image of Jesus that we see in churches and on Christmas cards is that of a white-skinned, blue-eyed, long-haired man with a beard. However, this image of Jesus is largely based on European art and has little to no basis in the Bible. In fact, the Bible describes Jesus as having Middle Eastern features. Let's start with his skin color. Many people assume that Jesus was white because he was supposedly of European descent. However, the Bible clearly states that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, which is in the Middle East. Furthermore, both of Jesus' parents were Jews, making him Middle Eastern. What about his hair color? Again, the Bible does not state what color Jesus' hair was. But the fact that he had hair does indicate that he likely had darker features. This is because people with lighter skin typically have lighter hair. Since Jesus was Middle Eastern, it is more likely that he had dark hair. Now, let's talk about Jesus' eye color. Once again, the Bible does not say what color Jesus' eyes were, but we can make an educated guess based on his ethnicity. People from the Middle East typically have brown eyes, so it is likely that Jesus also had brown eyes. Finally, let's address the issue of Jesus' beard. Many people believe that Jesus had a beard based on certain paintings and statues. However, there's no mention of whether or not Jesus had a beard in the Bible. In fact, the only reference to facial hair in the Bible is in relation to John the Baptist, who is known for his long hair and beard. It's possible that Jesus, like John the Baptist, had a beard, but it's by no means certain. So based on the information we have from the Bible, here's a rough sketch of what Jesus may have looked like. He would have had dark skin, dark hair, brown eyes, and possibly a beard. Now that we've looked at the biblical basis for what Jesus may have looked like, let's take a closer look at what he might have actually looked like. To do this, we will be using AI or animation to create a more realistic and accurate depiction of Jesus. There are several AI tools available online that allow users to upload a photo and then animate it, giving the image a more lifelike appearance. There are also tools that allow users to create 3D models of people based on their descriptions. Using these tools, we can create a 3D model of Jesus based on the biblical description of his appearance. For example, we could start with a base model of a Middle Eastern man and then customize the features to match those described in the Bible. This would give us a more accurate representation of what Jesus may have looked like. Taking into account his ethnicity and the clues we have from the Bible regarding his appearance, while it is impossible to know exactly what Jesus looked like, we can use these tools to create a more informed and accurate depiction of him than what is commonly shown in traditional art. I realize that some people may object to the use of AI or animation in this context. However, I believe that these tools can be helpful in understanding and visualizing what Jesus may have looked like. They can also be used to create a more inclusive and diverse representation of Jesus, which is important for those who do not identify with the traditional image of a white, European-looking Jesus. Ultimately, the goal of this video is not to provide a definitive answer to what Jesus looked like, but rather to encourage viewers to think critically about the traditional image of Jesus, and to consider the possibility that he may have looked different than what has been depicted in art and popular culture. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content.